Hey everybody, JJ here. Back again for another Wednesday of Zoom networking. Really pleased to have this young lady as our guest speaker today. She's actually come and spoken to the group before. She's absolutely amazing. She, like most of us, started as a real estate student, became an entrepreneur, a successful investor, and a coach and a trainer, and very well renowned in her own educational community as well as our whole industry. My good friend, Devinne Bravoco. How are you, Devin?
I am wonderful. Thanks so much for having me back, JJ. I'm just going to bring you around so you can intro me wherever I go. So thank you for that intro.
I love to. You're phenomenal.
Well,
I say it all the time. The biggest value that we get from what we do as real estate investors is not the education. I mean, we need to learn what we need to learn. It's not the money. That's, what we're chasing. But the
yeah,
biggest value are the relationships, the friendships we take with us through life. And if we're fortunate enough, guys, gals, we're going to meet people like Devin. We're going to meet successful investors who give back by teaching and coaching and training and lead by example, and people that are of good character, good integrity, and good ethics. And that's what the most important thing that's out there is our reputation and who we are and how we present ourselves. So, Devin, for those that don't know you, where in the country are you located?
I'm located in New Jersey.
Fantastic. I've got family in New Jersey, actually.
Oh yeah, we're in Jersey.
You know
We're
what?
from
I couldn't tell you. All I know is it's pretty darn close to Connecticut and New York.
Okay. So I'm close to Easton, Pennsylvania. So I'm like in the country of New Jersey.
That sounds beautiful.
It's
Um,
gorgeous. It really
yeah.
is.
So we actually met
Many years ago.
through my group when I was
Yes.
asking people who they could recommend as guest speakers, and your name came up well over a year, if not 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
at the time, you were coaching for Tarek El Moussa's homeschooled.
Yep.
Are you
Yes.
still with them?
Yes, I'm still with him. Actually, June will be 3 years that I've been coaching with him, which is amazing. Yeah, it's been an honor. It's been a great program. It's been really cool to meet so many different students and help them watch their success like blossom and grow. And some people started off with like never having a deal before, and now they are seasoned vets. So it's really been an honor and a great experience.
That's awesome. Hey, I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about how you got there. We're all investors. Some of us are new. Some of us have been around the block for a minute. Um, but we have many new investors that we've all started a different way.
Yep.
Some of us have started at a very young age, like yourself. Some of us started at an older age, like myself. Um, so I'll say it this way. We're driving at 16, we're voting at 18, 21, we can buy an alcoholic beverage. For those years from yourself, from your teens and your 20s, was real estate on the landscape? Was it something you saw? Was mom an agent, dad a contractor? If not, what were you doing from your teens and your 20s? And what was your progression from hanging out to working?
Yeah, so I always love this question because I feel like I have mixed emotions of like my response always. When I look back at my life now, I think it's different than what I thought at that age, obviously. And so at that age, I was trying everything and anything to not go to school. Like I didn't want to go to college. I hated high school. I hated middle school. Like I hated school. And I tried everything. I tried to join the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps. I tried literally everything to get out of going to college. And neither of my parents went to college. And so they were very adamant that I go because they wanted a different life for me than they had for themselves. And I switched colleges 3 times, and I also switched my major. I lost track of how many times I switched it. But I was very that person that just like wanted to be out in the workforce and be doing work. And so even when I was in college, I was always working a full-time job in addition to college. So it was like called like an internship, but I was still put in like big, I interned for Madison Square Garden, for AT&T, for Walt Disney World. So bigger like names that like worked for them. Um, and so I was constantly balancing work and school because I never wanted to be in school. And then whenever I was in school, I created charity foundations. I would raise money for people battling cancer and like show up and give like their parents a check to say like, here, I know you're going through a lot. Here's some money to go towards treatment. And so that was just like who I was. And so it's funny now because now looking at my life and looking back at that, like everything makes sense. And my dad was well, still is. My dad's an entrepreneur also. He owns his own business. He is a lawnmower mechanic and does small engines, and very successful in it and has owned it my whole life, for even longer. Like he did that right after out of high school. And so I watched that. And then my parents had rental properties, and that was like my college tuition. That was like all of the I would say like the perks of the real estate, right? And so I watched them manage this for many years. And so I guess like hindsight looking at it, like it's interesting because I feel like it was always in my blood in a way, but I never pinpointed it actually until there was like a really hard time in my life that made me kind of revisit things and see, okay, there has to be another way because I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. And so that kind of brought up, okay, let me try a
Let
different
me ask
avenue.
you. So you're in college for a bit. You're studying 85 different things and around the world in 180 days.
Yeah.
Um, when you left school to get in the job force, what was your first industry for your career?
So I was an event planner for a financial firm. I worked in the World Financial Center in Manhattan.
Impressive.
So I worked with portfolio managers and financial advisors, and I actually started off as a paid intern there right out of college, and then I worked my way up. I ended up there. I was there for over 7 years, and I was an AVP at the end, assistant vice president, principal, yeah, vice president
Wow.
events. Yeah, so I was traveling through just domestically, but I was traveling a lot. And I was planning events from anything from like 10 people for the CEO or CIO, Chief Investment Officer, or up to like 500 to 700 people. And it could be like a day dinner or it could be a week-long event. So yeah, I was managing a bunch.
But when did you make your jump into real estate and how was that I mean, I know you grew up around it, but I mean, was there like a commercial on TV? Did you see something on the internet? Was it like Bigger Pockets?
Yeah,
What
so
introduced you to real estate for as a direction for your career?
yeah, it's actually interesting. Like I feel like when you go through really hard times, a lot of things show up in your life. And so I was at a point in my life that I was traveling a lot. I was making a great amount of money at a very young age, but I was so not happy in my life at all. And so I was constantly trying to find something different. And to be honest, my partner at the time, we're no longer together, but he helped me a lot into getting to where I am. And my partner at the time, he was going through like a life-changing moment, actually ended up getting sober. And it just put life in perspective for me. It made me realize like how important life really is and how when we're hustling and moving and working so much, but like we're never like I was never gonna make more than I was making at the job. Like I basically maxed out where I was, and I was basically like a I was basically just at their mercy. Like anything they told me to do, I had to do. Like I couldn't just do things on my own. And so at that moment in my life, he was working a lot. I was working a lot. We had a dog. I was paying like, I don't know, I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000 a month for like 800 square feet. And I was also paying like a second mortgage for people to watch like my dog because neither of us were home. And so it just really put life in perspective. We had some deaths in the family at the time, and I was like, I want to be around family. Like my why is my family, and like I'm not around the people that I love. And so we were actually driving to church one day, and he heard an ad on the radio, signed us up for something. And yeah, we invested in our education. And so that's why I really love homeschooled also, which is Tarek's program, because I started off in an educational program as well. And when I started, I always loved like real estate. Like I was like that weird person who like if I was ever upset when I had my driver's license. I would drive around and look at people's houses because it made me happy. And so now being in design and in real estate, it's funny looking back to see how there's so many similarities that show me where I was going to be, but I had to figure that out on my own.
Did you get into one of the real estate education programs as a student before you became a coach?
Yeah. So I invested in Fortune Builders, which is where I feel like I met a lot of people through.
And that's where I started as well.
I do recall. Yes, it was a great stepping stool, like a stepping stone for me. I really enjoyed it. My first coach was a woman named Amy Majori. I'm sure you know her. A lot of people do. She has a group called Raising Private Money, and she just pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And I'm very, very grateful for her. She's still a good friend to this day. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from her. I took everything that I could from that program and just kind of dove in really fast and hard right at first, and then stabilized and kind of figured out what my niche was and then moved from there.
When I got into Fortune Builders, were you still there or had you moved on? Were you familiar with me coming up the ranks behind you?
What year were you in Fortune Builders? I don't
In
remember.
1943, I think. No, actually, I think I got in towards the end of 2018.
Oh, so we were at the same time. So I started like in real estate technically in 2017, and then 20 March of 2018 was like when my LLCs were official and like when I started with Fortune Builders. So we were same time-ish.
Yeah,
I
and
know
it's
we had
funny.
a lot of like good acquaintances that we knew, or similar people that both of us knew
Yeah,
for.
we have a lot of mutual friends because we didn't touch base actually till you'd already kind of moved on into coaching for Tarek.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Jen Josie connected us, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
who's also
Yeah.
out of Fortune Builders and
Yeah,
also
so
a coach for Tarek.
exactly. So Jen's one of my really good friends. I love her dearly. And
She's
so yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, she's a great person. I love her.
So, how did design become something for you? Because your topic today is designs that sell, and you're
Yeah.
known as a designer. How did that come about?
Yeah, it's so funny because like so I got into real estate, right? I knew nothing about real estate. My first home I got into, I knocked it down to the foundation and rebuilt it. It's not what I ever recommend any of my students do nowadays. But when I was building it, like my contractor kept asking me like, okay, what trim is going here? What light fixture is going here? Like they ask, all the normal questions, right? And I remember like Googling like, okay, what does trim mean? Okay, what are the good light brands? And so like I spent like hours and hours driving myself crazy, figuring out different brands of things, what things meant, being in a tile store and like spending hours talking to the salespeople, being like, okay, what's the difference between a ceramic tile and a porcelain tile? What's the difference between, like going through all of these different things. And so I really spent a lot of time, which at the time it was just me trying to get through the project. And I really started to find like a true love for like mixing textures and colors and everything together. And so it's funny because after my first project, right away, like I started getting asked, can you design my home? And I was like, you don't want me. I don't know what I'm doing. Like this isn't my thing. I didn't go to school for design. Like, no, hire like a designer. Like I'm not a designer. What do you want? And so I continued on. And so I just really fell in love with it. And then I think it came to a point that I started getting asked more and more questions of, can you look at this for me? Or can you give me an idea on this? And I realized at that point that like I could see things that not everybody else could see. And I could visualize different things. And I really enjoyed that. And so I kind of just took it and ran from there.
So, as you've turned into designs that sell, what are the different aspects that you bring towards your clients? I guess you've got clients, some clients come and go, some stay and come back again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been really fun for me. So obviously, like I still flip homes, I still coach, like I still am building. I do have an element of my business now that is a design and build. And so I have a contractor that works exclusive for me. And so I work with clients that are not investors and I design their homes and then we build their homes for them. And then I have this whole part that I launched just because like as I was growing, I was getting asked more and more. And so I do have Devinne Bravoco Designs. And so we design virtually for investors and then also in person for investors. And so I think it's really cool because I feel that like it's really important for an investor to spend the money and to really knock the design out of out of the park because if your layout is incorrect or if you didn't put the right fixtures into the home based on your price point and based on what you're trying to make from the house, it could easily make or break your deal. And so the more and more I fell in love with design over, it's been what, 7 years now, the more I've fallen in love for it, the more I've been asked more. And so kind of turned that part into learning and growing as well now.
That sounds cool. Um, do you what are some of the I don't know, some of the challenges that you find in working with people of that nature?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, there's challenges with everything we do every day in and day out, right? So the virtual design is something that I launched because like I want to be able to help people across the country. And I know I know a lot of investors that would come to me and I'm like, no, sorry, I can't help you. No, sorry, I can't help you. Are you looking in Jersey? No, sorry, I can't help you, right? And the more I kept getting asked it, I'm like, no, there has to be a way. So basically for like the virtual design part, I have the investor come to me and I ask them to give me a full set of comps and show me like the pictures of the comps of the price range that they're looking to get towards. I ask them for their budget and like what the allocations are for all the different fixtures and the allocations that a contractor is giving them and then obviously their time frame. And so from there I've given them a full set of design specs with all the links of everything that they can purchase. I would give them mood boards and I would give them, we would usually meet like for an hour, 2 hours, go through everything. And so usually I have it as like a set price depending on the square footage or the bed bath count. And so I would say that's like the virtual design process. The hard part with it, obviously, is like I'm not in every market. And so with that, I really rely on the investors to give me the content of what they're trying to get towards. So, like, for example, I'm in New Jersey, I've done houses in Georgia, I've done houses in Chicago, I've done San Francisco. I've done houses like all like in New York, like all over the place, some Florida. And so each one, it's really like I will obviously do my research as well, like trying to get to know the area specifically and the price range that they're trying to be in. But really, I would say there is like room for error in that from the investor is just making sure that they're getting the comps in the best way that they possibly can from their real estate agent or from themselves.
So as you're doing design and helping people with design, are there anything that you see happen again and again that apply from one person to the next, or is everything just really massively different from one project to the next?
Do you mean in regards to like the outcome or do you mean the process?
Well, both. I mean,
Yeah. So let me start with the process first. So like the process, I would say what I always say in anything that you're doing, and like especially as real estate investors, right? We're all here for a reason. We're looking to grow, our financial freedom. We're looking to help people. We're looking to build relationships, all of that. And so I always say like let the experts do what they're good at. And so I'm not going to go in and pretend that I know how to frame a house, right? That's not my specialty. I understand it and I can watch it and I can learn from it, but I don't want to be that, right? And so I think it goes the same with design because there's so many people that try to be a designer and say like, oh, I can pick the fixtures. Oh, I can pick this. I know what looks good together and all of that, which is cool. Like, great. If you want to do that, that's amazing. What I would say is that is that the best use of your time? And so when going through like the process, I think it's important to understand where your best use of your time really is. And so if it's pulling like lead generations, right? If it's raising private money, if it's I don't know, whatever your process is and whatever your specialty is, focus on that and bring in an expert to do what they're good at as well. It's going to cut down the hassle, it's going to cut down the time, it cuts down like on a lot of different things. Um, I would say the process with people too is just like if you want to design a house to sell, it's one thing. If you wanted to design a house to live in, it's different. And so, like, you have to realize, like, are you an investor and you're trying to make money on this house, or do you want to live in the house? Because, like, if you are trying to sell it, do you need to wallpaper all these things? Do you need to upgrade all these different fixtures because you like them? Probably not. Like, that's where, like, a designer knows where you need to splurge on and where you need to where you can kind of not cut costs, but you could be more conscious over what materials you're picking.
How active do you think contractors are or investors are with designers? I mean, do most people just do their own thing, or designers pretty prevalent?
I think it depends on like the market. So, I saw like a question here is like, are you designing for long-term, short-term, mid-term, or residential? And so I would say for all. I do personally have mid-term rentals and short-term rentals, and so I've done that. I have designed for a client a long-term rental. I've designed many of flips. I've done, personal like homeowners' homes as well. So I've done like a wide skew of it. Obviously, that also changes like how you're designing, right? Again, going back to like, are you designing for a homeowner and you're going to live there, or are you designing for a long-term rental? Because even when you're designing a long-term rental to a short-term rental, it's very different because your long-term rental, you don't need as much trendy looking items in the house. If you're designing a short-term rental, the design is like what is catchy and what people will be drawn to in booking your property. Um, and so I just think that there's a lot of different parts to it. And I want to go back to one of the questions you had asked too, like in when we were talking about the process or what else stands out. The other thing too is like there's different trends and then there's different parts that like I would say are going to be around for a while, right? For a long time you saw every wall was gray at one point. Now like that's kind of like fading out, right? You're now going more into like your whites and your grays and your beiges and stuff like that. And so there's just different parts to it that I would say also like when you talk about the experts being good at what they're good at is like those are things that like I stay on top with trends. I'm always researching, right? And I'm always like going to different vendors and learning more things and different products and all that fun stuff. And so kind of going back again, just saying that like you don't need to spend all of that extra time doing it, just hire somebody else to do it. And then to answer your last question was like, do you think that like a lot of people are using designers? I really think it is based on the market and based on like how much money really is like I don't want to say at risk, but like how much money are people looking to spend? And so like I usually like most of my flips are larger flips, right? I'm buying them for and like my last house I bought in like it was like around 500,000 and I sold it for 1.75 million. And so that house obviously has a big design element to it. Um, but I've also designed people's long-term rentals that are just like a quick in and out cosmetic flip. So, um, I would say that overall, this is just my opinion, is that I would say that overall investors are underutilizing a design expert and that they could easily make the money that they're going to spend on a designer back twofold by hiring a designer. So I would say the other thing too with design, I think a lot of people can't visualize things. And so, especially when you're designing a space, what I think is really helpful with a designer or whether you use a designer or not, I still think it's helpful to get renderings because if you can't visualize what a space is going to look like, it's important to pick the fixtures and then see what they're going to look like before actually doing the work. Because our biggest thing with being an investor, right, is time is money. And so when you're spending the money on doing things in order to do a change order, right? You're wasting money and you're wasting time. And so I think it's really important to be able to visualize as much as you possibly can. So even if you're doing it on your own, I would recommend getting renderings.
Mark Presswood, you are on with Devin. What's your question?
From the trainings, a couple of the academies and stuff, they actually have kind of like almost like a blueprint that you could use for some of these things to actually ease going through and make
Mhm.
life easy for both the developer and the contractor and get that
Mhm.
stuff done much quickly.
Yeah.
I remember at this particular event, they talked about, you're not putting a pizza oven in these rental properties, so you don't need the Italian marble and everything else. So I think it's just getting to like what you're saying, a concept, but we're taught to comp it out. So what is our competition doing? And we just
Mhm.
follow suit with exactly what's going on over there, right?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with is pulling the comps and seeing like where you realistically want to get to. So like using simplistic numbers for it. So let's say you're buying a house and your ARV is 500 grand, just to use easy numbers, right? You want to find all the houses between, let's say, 450 to 550, right? You want to see what those houses are selling for. Ideally, you want to sell for the top of the market. You want to be the next person to break the record, right? And so, a lot of times, if you're breaking records, it is because of the design elements of it and the character of it and all of that different parts to it. And so, yeah, you want to pull all the pictures and the layouts because layouts are just as important as the design elements. Like, I consider that one, if not both, right? Simultaneously. So when you're doing the space planning to understand like what sizes are the bedrooms, how big are your hallways, how tall are your ceilings, how big are your doorway openings, where are your closets, how big are those? Like those are all like little things that sound silly, but like a lot of times as a buyer, when they're walking through the house, they'll notice if the hallway is too narrow, but they might not know that the hallway is narrow and that's why it's bothering them. They might just walk through it and just feel weird and just say like, "Oh, I don't like this house." Right? And so there's a lot of different parts of like elements with it. And so you want to get to a part that like you have like either an architect or designer, any person who knows the market really well in your area to figure those different pieces out and say, this is what you need to do in order to push the boundaries, push the record breaking number and get to that part.
Yeah, I can agree with you. I mean, we buy on the math and we sell on the emotions, right?
Yep, you do. And like, yeah, I would say like as investors, right, we're taught to like stay emotionless in that. And but like 100%, it's like first impressions matter when you're selling. And like the buyers, like a lot of times they don't see something and think, oh, that's what I don't like. They just know that they don't like it. So even just like as silly as looking at a light fixture next to a door, right? Your light fixture is supposed to be about a third of the height of your door, or like around there, depending on it. And so, but if you have like a tiny little light fixture next to a door, again, they're not going like you get a Home Depot light. You don't see they're like, this one looks cool. You take it out of the box and it's too short, right? They're not going to see it like, oh, it's that light fixture that looks weird. They're going to see it like, oh, it doesn't look like something looks off. And so those are like the big things that I would say are important to really uh, take into consideration when you're looking at your comms, when you're looking at how you want to break that record.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your fine wisdom and helping us out here on the screen. It's amazing.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I will say like bold colors in general are like more of a trend and coming back right now, especially like the moody colors. Like I'm not big into like the yellows and like the brights. But the moody colors are really coming back. Painting like the ceiling and the walls and the trim and the doors all the same color is definitely coming back in style. And I think that's a beautiful look. Again, you just have to kind of keep in consideration like, do you really need to spend the money for that? for your flip, or is it just really cool maybe for your own house? But yeah, the crazy front doors, not 100% sold on it. This is my dog.
All right, Coco. So it's just clean, safe, and functional, right?
100%, yes. Clean, and I would say like you want to make it with character, but you also want it to be something that like a buyer can then turn into their own and see them living there. So like I'm big on the fact of like I usually take like one room and put like color and like fun and like give it like that oomph, but like at the same time then like most of the rooms are kind of like white for like an investor because you want like if you paint a room yellow and the buyer hates yellow, that they're gone. Even though you can paint the room, they're gone. They just don't see it like that. And so because we're investors and we're taking the emotion out of it, it's not our home, right? We're not living there 100%. That's not our place. We want to make money on these homes. And so that's important.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, JJ, for the platform as well. You're awesome as usual.
It's nice meeting you.
Graham, you are on with Devinne Bravoco. What's your question?
Thank you. As from the perspective of investors, of course, should the whole house be painted the same color every room to leave it for the home buyer, or what's your
I
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on your market, to be honest. I usually like to paint like the dining room or the powder room or like a bedroom a specific color. I would stay more with like the colors that are like on trend right now. So like the darker, the moodier colors. I love obviously like I love greens. I love like a blue. Um, I would stick more with that than like your bright colors in your face. But generally speaking, I would say 90% of any home that I'm flipping or that I'm designing for an investor is usually a neutral color, some shade of white or some shade of like a cream kind of color, more of like a beige, grayish kind of color.
Okay. And what do you do with the front yard for curb appeal?
So curb appeal is huge. I know a lot of, yeah, earth tones, Mark. I like that. 100%. For the curb appeal, it's huge. The design of your exterior of your home is just as important as, if not more important sometimes, to get the buyer in on the exterior of the home. And so I'm a big proponent. Again, it depends on like the price range, but I usually sod the front and seed the back and the sides. Obviously, I know I'm in Jersey, and so some people don't have grass in their areas, but I definitely want the front of the house to look as best as it possibly can. Doing some sort of landscaping, having some sort of walkway to the front of the house. Again, a big proponent of like not listing the property until the front can show as best as possible. But definitely putting some kind of shrubs or flowers or something. Again, my price point was a little bit higher, but the house that I just recently sold, it was during Halloween that it was getting listed. And so I had like a hay thing out, like a hay bale out there. I had some pumpkins and gourds and some flowers planted to kind of welcome people. And so for that property, even just to give you an idea of how important design is, my initial ARV from that house was 1.1. And so I listed it for 1. I don't even know what, but I ended up getting it for 1.75 million, all cash, 30-day close. And so that is a very big a profit in the sense of what initial ARV it was to what it sold for. And I firmly believe it's because of the space planning of it, meaning the architectural plans and the layout and the design of it.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Graham. Jody, you're on with Devin. What's your question?
Devin, I just was wondering, I do midterm rentals, and I heard like books and stuff help with that. Mostly nurses that have rented, and I just seeing if you maybe you have some other tips other than that that might help with that.
Yeah, so one of my dearest friends, I don't, if you're in the midterm rental space, you might know her, but one of my dearest friends, Sarah Weaver, she wrote a book called 30-Day Stay. She's one of my accountability partners. I talk to her almost daily. She's an incredible person who I love dearly. She also owns a business called Aria Design, and so she will help you furnish midterm rentals as well. So if you ever need help with that, I would definitely reach out to her. Tell her I sent you and she'll definitely help you. She's an amazing person. She does have the book called 30 Days Stay though, that was published actually from Bigger Pockets. I think it came out last year or the year before. And yes, Daniel, it's a great book. Definitely read that one. It's a wonderful read. So there's always like tips from that. The other part with midterm rentals is like you want to in perspective to like what are you do like when you're renovating it and stuff, you're in the middle of a short-term rental and a long-term rental, right? So you want it to be still neutral, but you want it to be a little bit more homier, and it doesn't have to be as trendy as a short-term rental.
Sweet, thank you. I'm actually putting one together right now that'll come in real handy.
Oh, good.
Literally, it's in the backyard of the other one, but that's the way I plan to do it. So I'm
Yeah,
doing
and
that when I
also
go to put that
yeah,
in.
go on Furnished Finder if you haven't already, and that's like where you can pull different comps as well. One of my midterm rentals, I honestly just rent on for 30 days stay on Airbnb. I'm not a big proponent of Verbo. I don't like Verbo. I am very vocal about that. Um, so. But even on Airbnb, I would look to see too other 30-day stays in your price point and see what they look like as well. But yeah, definitely reach out to Sarah if you need help furnishing it. She's amazing and is great in the space.
Sweet, thank you very, very much.
You're so
We'll
welcome.
definitely.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Jody. Mr. Mark Presswood, you're on with Devin. What's your question?
Thank you again, Devin. It's the big luxury stuff, like the big 5 million, 8 million, $20 million
Mhm.
properties. I mean, that's where some crazy taste comes in, right?
Yes.
And you could get hurt too, right?
100%. So I love bigger projects because it does leave a bigger spread. So it leaves like that room for error. However, if you try to do everything on your own, it could really hurt you because when you're in that price point, you have to have certain material, and that certain material is what the buyers are going to look like. So like for example, if I don't have Anderson 400 series windows in my house, people care, right? And then when you get into even the bigger, like what brand toilet do you have? Is there a Toto? Is it a Kohler? Like all of those things matter. And so those are the things, especially when you're getting into 5 million, 8 million and up, those material choices and the brands and the warranties, all of that stuff matters. Like what brand hardwood floor are you putting in? Is it solid? Is it engineered? Is it vinyl plank? Like all of these different things really take a big play in it.
But installation wise, it's probably this about the same, or maybe a little bit more, or installation wise, like
Like,
I know the
do you mean
materials are
like as
definitely
an,
going to be the materials are going to be a different price, but like
yeah. So like it's the same thing with contractors. You're not going to use the same contractor that you renovate $100,000 property with $1 million property. They're completely different.
right,
And
two men
so
in the
that's
truck.
yeah, exactly. And so that goes to the same with then like you're not going to use a contractor that is going to do a $500,000 property to an $8 million property. They're just two different contractors. You have to have more attention to detail. There's things that these buyers at that price point care a lot more about. And so you're going to have a contractor that focuses in those areas that can then uh, do that attention to detail and can help you get to that price point. But like those are like things that like if you miss the mark, it could really hurt you and be a big like a big costly error. And so like even if like your trim doesn't match up, if you're not doing like maybe you put like a 5-inch molding, but really you need like a 7-inch molding. Or you put a 3-inch molding thinking it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. You put hollow doors instead of solid doors. Like those things Like that's what buyers at a bigger price point care about. And so those are things that I would say a designer understands more about. Yes, working with different contractors that specialize in the price point that you want to be in. And also just realizing your comps. Your realtor is going to be like your like sounding board as well. I like if you're building bigger properties, I highly recommend working with a realtor that's investor friendly, but also works with builders, not necessarily just flippers who are doing like cosmetic flips. It's a different kind of realtor. And my realtor is one of my dear friends, and she's also a very big extension of my team. I rely on her a lot for so many different things. And we probably go see like 20, 30 houses before I even start designing a home. And so when you get into the bigger price points, yes, there's more room for error. However, the errors are usually more costly than if you're doing a smaller flip. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think another good way is just to go property tour some of these luxury homes and just get the feel and the vibe off the thing, right? I mean, literally go get in the
Yeah.
space and see that's a 10-foot ceiling for a reason. That's a 15-foot ceiling with a 7-inch molding, so it's scale. Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah,
like
and
that.
even just walking around and looking what brand toilet is there, what brand is the hardware, what does the trim look like, what finishes are people using, are their closets decked out or are they completely just empty and left for them to figure out? So these are all things that are really important that sound silly, but again, a buyer is not going to necessarily realize some of them, and so it's an important piece of pulling comps, looking at the pictures. If you're local to the market, so like for me, for any project in New Jersey or like around this area, I honestly go see like at least 20 houses. And like I still consider like go see them throughout the process as I'm building them too, because like I've picked the design, but I want to make sure that everything still fits. And so I've picked all these pieces, but I want to make sure when we're putting up the light fixtures that everything still is like to what is in market. Because when you're doing a bigger project, it takes longer. So it's not like you're in and out within 3 months. It could be a year, it could be a little bit longer.
All right, cool, cool. No, I was looking at a luxury. A luxury came across my desk. It was like 5.5 million. And I asked my realtor to find some comps and things. And, they had to go like 7 miles away to find something that was around the thing. So it's like, do we comp like by the square foot, price per square foot? Um, you know, how much are we spending on the exterior and the landscaping, the pool decks? I mean, but I mean, there is a lot of room for, but this particular one, the ranges range from like 3 million to 23 million in comps. And it's like, holy Toledo,
Wow.
like what a
Yeah,
spread. So
that's a big range, and that's a big difference of like what's inside as well.
yeah,
I would try to narrow that down as much as you possibly can. And then what I would recommend too, and just trying to figure out pricing, is talking to contractors that build in that area specifically on that size house,
yeah,
and asking them their price per square foot, for especially with an investor. That'll at least give you some sort of idea,
yeah.
before getting farther down into it.
Yeah, I don't think I would jump in one of these single-handedly. I think I'd have to be mentored along just so that you don't make a big freaking mess out of it.
I
So it
mean,
would
I'm
definitely
a
be,
firm, yeah, I'm a
yeah,
firm believer, and obviously I've hired many of coaches. I have like several different accountability groups still to this day. Yes, I coach, but I still have coaches. There's so many different people. I don't care what level it is. Like you'll hear Grant Cardone talk, you'll hear Tarek El Moussa talk, and they have coaches too. It's just a different level, right? We all coaches have coaches too. Like we all need somebody to bounce different ideas off of, to like even validate us sometimes, to say like, yeah, you're on the right page, or like, hey, this is something to look out for. So would definitely hire people around you that can help support you.
this is a very interesting. I want to get into luxury then. I want to do it.
Listen, I love it. It's amazing. So I'm not like in the 23 millions, but like I'm, pushing around like 2 million. So I'm doing, I usually knock a house down to one wall, and rebuild it. So I love that a lot more than, doing interior remodels. So I'm big on like forcing appreciation and adding square footage. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a couple of places we did walking for dollars, and a lot of these mansions are basically vacant, and it's like, why? Like, what's going on here? So
Yeah.
it's.
So, Devin, how much are you investing and how much are you designing? Is your time split equally between both?
So investing wise, I would say I'm trying to do like 1 to 2 bigger flips a year. So they're bigger spreads, bigger flips, but not as much quantity wise. Quality, obviously, yes. Design and build, I have like probably about a year out right now already. So I have about 5 additions that I'm working on. So I'm doing the design of that and building it, and then design in aspects to like the investor part, that's rapidly growing. And so I'm doing a lot of virtual, and I have a bunch in person as well. So that's not really like the answer you want, but I would say like between the 3 different businesses, they're all rapidly growing.
Right.
The flipping, I'm not trying to make it this big conglomerate. I really just like doing what I'm doing. And then looking to build more of the design part and help other investors kind of grow their businesses as well.
Great. So what's in the future for you? You have a book going on? You going to do more coaching with Tarek? Do you have a web?
Uh,
If people want to connect with you watching on YouTube weeks and months down the line, what's the best
yeah.
way for them to reach out to you?
Honestly, the best way is through Instagram. I'll put like my contact information. I'll give you my contact as well, JJ. But I would, Instagram is my biggest thing. It's my name. It's as simple as possible. So at Devinne Bravoco, uh, I would message me, comment. I'm big on Instagram. I will get back to every person always. I love Instagram. I'm always on there looking for more inspiration and stuff. So I would say that's the best way. Um, my email is dbsquared.co or devin@dbsquared.co. My new website is in the works. I'm super excited about it. Been changing my website. So my current one is down, and I am working on my new one with all of my portfolio. So really excited about that, and it should be up and launched in the next coming weeks. Been meeting a lot with my web designer. So really excited about all that's coming. Uh, Book wise, I mean, it's always been in the talks and I journal a lot, but we'll see. We'll see how that kind of transpires as we go.
So I've got one last question to ask.
Yes.
My group's a networking group, and I always talk about the importance of networking. From your standpoint as a student, now you're a coach, you're a successful entrepreneur, you're teaching. There's so many education programs out there. Homeschool by Tarek, Astro Flipping, Sub2, Fortune Builders, Seven Figure Investor. Um, with new people coming to these groups every day that have no experience in real estate investment, new people coming every day that have a lot of experience in real estate investment, but they're
Yep.
coming to social media for the first time. And I'm going to join a Facebook group for this community.
Mhm.
They get in, they focus on the education and on the learning how to do their task, which they're seeking to master, but not always looking to utilize social media for networking. What,
Yep.
in your opinion, is the importance of networking for the new or the experienced real estate investor coming to social media? And what might be the importance of joining a group like mine?
So social media, I would say it can help your business in so many different ways. I also think that that's more about quality versus quantity. And so the conversations that I have on social media all the time are huge. My business is fully based off of referrals right now, and I'm very honored because I have a full year's booked out for especially the construction part. And that is, I feel very like blessed and very grateful for that. And a big part of that is because of social media. I'm very big on it. I'm trying to be vulnerable and share like who I am, not just necessarily like the wins, because we all go through hard days, right? We all go through a million different things. And so I think that, you know, I would say that there's this part of social media that tries to be this shiny person, everything's amazing in my life, I'm a big proponent on like, okay, let's talk about it because it's not all shiny, right? So I think social media is really huge. And then the more open you are, a lot of people then connect with you that way. And so I've been connected a lot of times because of my vulnerability or sharing about what's going on. And then kind of really, and maybe that person turns into a private invest or a private lender. Maybe that person has somebody that wants to sell a home. Like there's so many different things that like build off of a connection. And I would say that this whole business is all relationships. Like when we joined this call before, you were talking about like your brand, your personality, like all of these different things. That is your brand. That's who you're building. Your integrity matters. All of these things matter. I hope that like if someone ever were to speak ill on me, that somebody else would be like, no, like that's wrong, right? Because like I don't put that energy out. And if somebody wants to speak ill on me, go ahead. I don't care. Like that's for you to talk on. And so like I'm a big proponent on like spirituality and all those different things. And so I share that on social media. So I can go on a rampage with that. My other part, in joining like your group, there is a million different coaching programs out there right now. I feel like every day I'm hearing of somebody else launching a new coaching program, launching something else that, is coming up or in the works or whatever. I do think that it's important to find something that someone has the leader has a lot of integrity. They have a lot of morals. They hold other people to those standards, I think is really important because it could easily go down a negative train. And so what I love about your community and for who you are is that you are very positive. You're always putting that energy. You're trying to help other people. And that's a big thing because it's I'm a big believer on like giving and receiving, and that you give and then you receive because you give. And so I think that is a representation of who you are and is really important with how you pick like your coaching programs. The last thing I'll say on coaching programs too is that I think it's really big to choose a program that's local to you and then also a program that is like nationwide. And so the virtual community is huge. You can learn so much from it. And then also as you're doing like when I joined before, right, JJ, you're connecting people with people in local markets or people that can help one another. And so going back to the relationships, all of that is so huge. That's how all of us got to where we were. I used to go to meetups early and say, "Can I set up chairs for your meetup and take some like minutes of your time and ask you questions?" I went to one meetup a day for 90 days.
Wow. I really want to thank you for coming on today. You're always a pleasure to have on. Can't wait till the new house is built down here in Southern California. You can fly on out and join one of our meetups. Um,
Yes.
always a pleasure to have you on. Hey, if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, please like Devin's video. Please put in the comment section what your takeaways are, what you found informative, what you really liked about the video. Also, if there's anything that I can do better, that we can do better on our end for a production standpoint, please put that down. How can we bring you a better product? How can we improve what we're doing? Um, just really, really want to consistently bring great speakers, great topics, great content, and give back to the community. Um, Again, if you want to get a hold of Devinne, it's going to be Devinne Bravoco on Instagram. If you want to get a hold of me, go to my website, jjazizian.com. Right here is the QR code to register for my group. Over here is the link for my YouTube channel as well as my IG. So follow me on Instagram as well. And other than that, Devinne, I guess we'll see them out there in the virtual world of Instagram and social media, right?
I love it. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the questions. And I appreciate all the effort you do to put into this platform. So it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. Hey, if you guys are on the call, don't go away. We're going to do some networking, ask some questions, and just get acquainted. Everybody else, thanks for joining us. See you soon.